Finding your direction, a career path, can be difficult. There's so many choices. Check out Life University and explore your options at their Eagle Madness Preview Day on Saturday, March 2nd. It's your opportunity to spend the day learning about their unique undergraduate programs like culinary nutrition, biology, business administration, and more. Come discover exciting majors and talk to current students and faculty at our beautiful Marietta campus. We'd love to see you at our Eagle Madness Preview Day on March 2nd. For more details and to register, visit life.edu/join today.
Extra 1063 and a second chance bail bonds are here to back your blue. Back Your Blue highlights special initiatives, criminal justice programs, and community events aimed at keeping our communities safer. Join a second chance bail bond CEO Daniel Matalon and host Tug Coward to learn some good news about and from the law enforcement and justice communities. Now it's time to back your blue on Extra 1063 FM and the Extra 1063 app.
Welcome to Back Your Blue with Daniel Matalon. He is the founder and CEO of a Second Chance Bail Bonds, and it's so great to have you. And thank you for all you do for our law enforcement and just the community in general, man. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Yeah, no, thank you.
It's
good to be here.
You've lined up a great guest today, attorney, a special prosecutor, Diane McCleod of the GBI. Attorney McCleod has worked as a special prosecutor for the GBI in the legal division, and in this position works as the attorney assigned to the Agriculture Labor Initiative and provides counsel and advice to law enforcement agencies and others working with the Howard G. Buffett Agricultural Labor Trafficking Grant. That's a mouthful there.
It is a mouthful.
Goodness gracious. How long have you been with the GBI?
I have been with the GBI almost 2 years now.
Okay.
Yes.
And what made you interested in working for the GBI?
So to tell you where my interest comes from, I need to tell you a little bit about my background, okay? For many years, I was a prosecutor in the DA's office in Chatham County. I was the chief assistant, so I ran our juvenile court division. In that division, in addition to just the things that juveniles get into, we started seeing a lot of juvenile runaways. And they would be gone for months to years at a time.
Oh, my goodness.
And we couldn't figure out, if you're 13, how are you surviving on the street for 6 months, a year at a time? And, of course, with most young people, they love social media, right? And so we would start stalking their Facebook pages, their Instagram pages. And what we would see is that they would take pictures of themselves in hotel lobbies. Well, one thing that I knew was that if you're 14 years old, you can't run a hotel room. You have to be 21. You have to have ID. Most of these children, they did not have that. So clearly there was someone who was facilitating this for them. And then at one time we had one young lady who was gone, and she was gone for about 3 years. When she left, she was 12, and when she came back, she was 15. And we couldn't figure, and we were like, well, how did you survive? And she told us, and she said the person who she later identified as her trafficker had made threats to her, but he was like taking her all over, trafficking her. And so at that point, I realized it was something that, we had to do. And we started doing some things in Chatham trying to address the issue. I joined an organization known as the Savannah Interagency Diversity Council. And since 2016, annually, we put on an event that we call Traffic Jam. As a matter of fact, it's held the last weekend in January of each year, which was about a week and a half ago, is when we had our event. Just for community awareness, we do law enforcement training one day, and then the second day we do community awareness. Continuing working with this, fast forward, I left Chatham DA in 21, and at one of my Traffic Jam events, I happened to meet the director of the legal division of GBI, and we're talking, and I'm telling her about why I'm here, and she was like, "You're doing this on a Saturday?" And I said, "Yes, because this happens to be my passion." And she was like, "You're not getting paid for it?" And I was like, "No, this is something I believe in, and I want to see it in." And she was like, "Well, you may be the person I need to talk to." And so she told me about the grant that they had, the initiative they were starting, and that they were looking for somebody who was in that area because it was going to focus on South Georgia and Middle Georgia. And And so interviewed, met with them, talked with everyone, and ended up working and took the job because it is something that I'm passionate about and I believe in.
I got to tell you, and Daniel, you share this passion for your community, for our law enforcement, and for helping kids because you're involved with so many charities. So, I mean, these kind of go hand in hand.
Oh, absolutely, because this stuff is scary. I mean, what she's talking about is just most people don't realize the magnitude of kind of what's going on in that world, and so it's great to have her here to talk about some of that.
Talking to Diane McCleod, she's the special prosecutor for the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. I think Daniel's exactly right. I think people are maybe opening their eyes to it, Diane. Human trafficking, sex trafficking, that exists. And I think people know it exists at a distance. You know, they've heard of it before on the news, on a podcast, on a radio show, but I don't think they realize how close it is to them. With the Atlanta airport being the busiest in the world, having access to Atlanta from pretty much by airplane, to you're 2 hours away from most every place in the United States of America. West Coast a little further, obviously, but by and large. And it just opens the door naturally to this horrific practice.
And so, depending on which source you're looking at, okay, Georgia is somewhere within the top 5 to 10 of states as it relates to human trafficking. And they attribute it to the fact that we have major events that drives demand, and demand drives trafficking. So when we have the Super Bowl here, when we have the NBA games here,
World Cup, which has just been announced.
I saw that when we have, the major college sports events that are happening here, it drives demand, and demand drives trafficking. And so when you bring those people in here in huge numbers, demand goes up and the trafficking goes up.
You've been doing this for 30 years.
Oh, man, you make me sound so old, but go ahead.
Well, no. No, well, look, as
but I know who the Highlander is, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we brought that up before the show. Yeah, no doubt. You were talking about your last name was McCleod, yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I know nothing. She used a great reference from a TV show, The Highlander, and I was just like, I have no idea what that is. And it's so bad because I am such a music guy, but it sounds like Traffic Jam could be a music event, isn't it?
Right. It's not. It's really.
Sure. We got to add bands to it or something.
I know. We spell it TRAFFICK.
Okay. Got it. I see.
And we thought it was just a catchy title, just to grab people's attention, to make them delve a little deeper to find out what the event was about.
You also you've supervised 3 attorneys who have prosecuted felony and misdemeanor cases involving juveniles. And does it ever get really heavy for you where you're like, I can't believe this is happening in real life? And I know for me, sometimes just doing a news show, the news gets really, really heavy and you have to check out and read a book or work in your garden, work in the lawn, whatever it is. Does work get heavy for you?
Sometimes it does, in that position and in this position as well. When you hear of the atrocities that are being committed against humans by other humans, it makes you wonder, what is this world coming to?
It does. Daniel, you kind of deal with that a little bit too, because you've told me stories. Matter of fact, before we started the show, you told me this elaborate story that had happened and you had to deal with. And that's the other thing. Like, does it get heavy for you sometimes?
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, just because it goes in waves of just from something just very innocent to then just something major, and even with the juvenile, we do juvenile bonds as well. We have unfortunately a lot of juveniles on bond with us, and some of those stories are wild too. I mean, because you're like, where are the parents?
Yeah.
How is this even like really? I mean, I can understand a kid acting out, and I was a young, crazy teenager myself.
A hellion.
I was definitely a hellion. But then some of the stuff we're dealing with is like on a whole. It's next level, right?
And that's the thing. I think a lot of people are seeing issues with the border right now, and then that's something that is in the news a lot, And I think there's probably a significant problem with trafficking in that part of the world too.
And so I always, when I'm talking trafficking and I'm talking to law enforcement and it's people in general, I always want them to remember the difference between crimes against the border and human trafficking. Because crimes against the border are just people who are coming into the United States violating our border laws, right? The trafficking is that most of the people who are coming in who are victims of labor trafficking have actually entered the United States legally. And so they're coming here on various visas. In South Georgia, because we have the farms, and this is what the initiative is about, they're coming in on what we call an H-2A visa. And the H-2A visa allows farmers to bring workers in from other countries to work the farms because they can't find American citizens who are willing to do it. And so they will, because if I have a farm in South Georgia, I don't know anyone in Mexico, right? So I have to get someone who knows someone in Mexico to go and recruit there and bring them there. And so they use people, what we call labor contractors, to go and recruit people to bring to work the farms. And that's where the trafficking starts.
Right, but like there's the movie that was just recently released, the Sound of Freedom, and I think it was more on a federal scale than just the state scale, but it talked about the sex trafficking that happens across the border too. You know that exists as well. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that are happening there. But have you seen that too?
So if you go outside of the state of Georgia, I'm not going to deal with you.
Gotcha.
I'm only dealing with what's happening in Georgia, and that's my jurisdiction.
Sure.
So we are looking at people who are coming inside our state and who are trafficking within the state of Georgia.
Yeah, I can see that happening because Georgia, again, just the access to the airport, the interstate, and man, it becomes frightening. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said just what humans can do to other humans, and just the ferocity of it, the how scary it is just to think about, and it's so important that we do discuss it out loud, Daniel. That way everybody is on the same page, everybody is aware of what's happening, and everybody can do or try to help do something about it.
Yeah, no, it's a lot.
It is, and we're glad that you're here on Back Your Blue. When we come back, we'll get into the Human Trafficking Special Task Force. Diane McCleod, she's a special prosecutor at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, joining us here on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Coward, along with Daniel Madelon. He is the CEO and founder of A Second Chance Bail Bonds, and we will continue next on Extra 106.3.
Finding your direction, a career path, can be difficult. There's so many choices. Check out Life University and explore your options at their Eagle Madness Preview Day on Saturday, March 2nd. It's your opportunity to spend the day learning about their unique undergraduate programs like culinary nutrition, biology, business administration, and more. Come discover exciting majors and talk to current students and faculty at our beautiful Marietta campus. We'd love to see you at our Eagle Madness Preview Day on March 2nd. For more details and to register, visit life.edu/join today.
This morning in the Atlanta airport, no one's missing a meal on Mac Wilburn's watch. With 11 restaurants to serve passengers, he's got dining for every destination. And it all started when Mac talked with First Horizon Bank about opening a franchise in the airport. Now it's open for business and cleared for takeoff. First Horizon Bank. Let's find a way. Go to firsthorizon.com/Mac. First Horizon Bank, member FDIC.
Extra 106.3 and A Second Chance Bail Bonds are here to back your blue. Now back to the show on Atlanta's only conservative news and talk station, Extra 106.3.
Welcome back to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3. My name is Tug Coward, along with Daniel Madelon. He is the founder and CEO of A Second Chance Bail Bonds. Today, our guest is Diane McCleod. She is a special prosecutor with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Human Trafficking Task Force. In 2021, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Georgia indicted 24 people for labor trafficking. Alleged allegations included forced labor, mail fraud, and money laundering. Now, all that sounds like something out of an episode of 48 Hours.
It does.
I mean, but that's what y'all deal with all the time.
So that case, I guess, kind of shed light on the issue of labor trafficking within the agricultural community. And one of the things we know about Georgia and agriculture is that agriculture runs Georgia's economy, right?
Absolutely. It's the number one, right? Number one.
Yeah, it's the number one. So agriculture drives the community. So, of course, farmers want to get those products on the market. But one of the things that they have problems doing is finding workers to actually come and work the farms. And so when we look at it, they back in the 80s, Congress created this special program and this special visa called an H-2A visa, saying that if you can prove to us that you have made an effort to find American workers to come and work your farms and you're unable to do so, then we'll give you a visa. You can bring people over and we'll give them visas to come and work your farms.
Okay.
Most farmers who live in South Georgia, they don't know anyone who lives in Mexico. So here it comes in the labor contractors. And the labor contractors go over to the countries, Honduras, Mexico, and they recruit and bring them here. And the trafficking actually starts in the other country, okay? Mm-hmm. Because there they know, regardless of how bad the conditions may be that they come to work in and here in the United States and in Georgia, it's not nearly as bad as what it is in their home country. And so one of the issues we really have when we encounter potential victims is them identifying themselves as victims because they don't see themselves as victims.
Interesting.
We have this initiative with the Buffett Foundation. They gave the state of Georgia a great grant in 2022 to look at and work the issue of labor trafficking in Georgia. Our focus is really primarily on Middle and South Georgia, looking at the farms there. And so that's where we do our outreach work. We provide victim services. We have agents there who look at, work investigating. But one of the cornerstone of that grant is that all of our investigations are victim-centered, meaning that we put victims first. They're evidence-based, meaning that we're not only using the investigative techniques, but we're using stats, we're pulling documents and information from other resources, and then we're trauma-informed, meaning that when we're dealing with victims, we're understanding that they're dealing with trauma. So unlike an officer who may report to a burglary and the victim can immediately say, someone broke into my house at whatever time I left and came back and I'm looking around, my TV's missing, I had money here and all of that's gone. We understand that victims in these type of cases, they are not going to respond that way. And so we talk about how to build rapport with these victims so that they can finally come clean and tell us what's going on.
And that's not that uncommon, right? And it doesn't matter. Oftentimes in just regular crimes, like the victim often blames themselves.
Yes, and sometimes they do. And we often find that officers really have to build rapport with victims in order for them to really start telling us what's going on. Because we can identify them and we can find them and we can offer them services. But until they're ready to tell their story, we're kind of at a standstill.
Talking to Diane McCleod. She is a special prosecutor of the GBI. But that's something that y'all do too, Daniel, at a Second Chance Bail Bonds. It's all about building that rapport, building that relationship, whether with a particular client or law enforcement agencies in the area.
Yeah, I mean, it helps things move a lot smoother, for sure.
Everything in life is based on relationships, right?
It is. Relationships are important.
It is. And so let's go back to the initiative real quick. And so how did it come about? Because from my notes, I see that this, like you said, it came about in 2022. But the problem was most of the funds were being used to investigate sex trafficking, which is incredibly important too, but it just left a hole in the budget.
It did. So most of the money was going to sex trafficking, which is very serious. But people kind of discounted the labor trafficking, especially in the agricultural industry, because they thought most of them here were illegals, right? But then we find out they're not illegal. They're here legally, but they're being their visa terms and conditions are being violated by the person who brought them here, who would be the labor contractor. And so we look at things such as we look at the H-2A applications that kind of tells us what's going on. Are you a contractor? How many people are you bringing over? Are you bringing over more people that are needed for this particular farm? I mean, if a farm only needs about 40 people to harvest the crop, but you're asking for 70, then of course for us that's a red flag. There are several things that a H-2A visa requires, meaning that you provide the transportation for them to the United States. You make sure they have adequate and sanitary housing. When they're working in the fields, they're getting the breaks that they need. You're providing them with potable water. You're paying them fair wages and things of that nature. So we have outreach workers that are a part of the grant. From Georgia Legal Services, as well as a nonprofit called Tapestry, and they will go and they will do outreach to addresses based on the H-2A applications, where they tell us they're housing these workers. Sometimes they go and no one lives there. And then we do a follow-up. Where are the people that you said you were going to bring in, who were going to reside at this residence? And so, those are red flags for us. Or if we have recently we brought on the Department of Labor, the Department of Agriculture as one of our partners, because of course they have the right to actually go on the farms and inspect the farms to make sure that they are following the Department of Agriculture standards. And so we've done training with them. We did trained over 300 agricultural workers last summer, letting them know, here are the things you should start looking for when you're on the farms doing inspections, making sure that you're seeing a sanitary bathroom, making sure you're
living quarters or whatever.
They have potable water. Are the people inside of in an enclosed structure with barbed wire on top? Because why would you need barbed wire to around housing for residents, right? What does that mean, right? Those are red flags, because that means you don't want them to leave. Sometimes when you talk to the victims, where's your documentation? Do you have your visa? Do you have your passport? Because 9 times out of 10, the biggest red flag of labor trafficking is that when they come over, the trafficker takes all of their document papers. And because they know that on the H-2A application and the H-2A visa, they can only work on the farm that's listed on the visa. Mm-hmm. So if they take away their paperwork, they can't go anywhere. And then, of course, the trafficker threatens them that, because it's a small town, it's rural South Georgia, every stereotype that they believe happened in Mexico, they're telling them the same is going on in South Georgia. I'm good friends with the sheriff. Nobody's going to believe you. So if you go and tell the sheriff, he's not going to do anything because he's my cousin or some story they make up. And the workers actually believe them. And so you have to really look at it from a subjective basis, right? Because they're isolated from their culture. They're believing something that somebody who actually lives here is telling them. And so they won't report. And so they stay there and they work in conditions where they're not paid, they're not fed. Traffickers have charged them an exorbitant fee just to come here and work, and then threatening not only them, but their families back home.
How much do you see these people being charged to have the opportunity to come work?
So it varies. Sometimes $6,000, $8,000, $10,000.
Wow.
That they're charging them, and then they're deducting that from the basic pay that they're giving them. So they are never, it's kind of debt bondage. You're never out of debt because you owe them, and then they're telling them if you don't pay, guess what? You have family over there. We're going to go and do some sort of harm to your family.
Do you find that people down in South Georgia, as far as in the agriculture community or industry, are aware first, and then secondly, are on the up and up, most of them, and are willing and want to help and do the right thing?
So I don't think that they are aware, okay? Because most farmers, once they realize they can't hire American workers, they turn it over to a labor contractor, and they let that labor contractor handle it. And it's kind of akin to if I'm an employer and I hire a temporary agency to do my staffing. And so that temporary agency does the staffing, and I'm like, okay, you've already vetted everybody. You're just sending them to me, and I just need to tell you what to do. So the labor contractors really, they turn it over to them, let them do all the hiring, and then the payment is between the farmer and the labor contractor. The farmer really doesn't have any kind of contact with the workers, and very little. We go into communities and we provide training to local law enforcement and to citizens as well. And sometimes we have people who own farms, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that. And so it's kind of eye-opening to them that this is actually happening, and they're made aware of it now. And so that's why the awareness, the education, and the training is just so important for us to get the word out for those who work in these industries.
Diane, when people do find out that there is this underbelly, if you will, are they then more likely to see the red flags, report the red flags, and be more cooperative?
Yes, we
That's
have.
good news.
It is good news. I, along with our coordinator for our human trafficking task force, we go and we see. We train police officers in the smaller areas because for a lot of them, they can't go to the 2-day trainings that are being put on either by GBI or by Post or in some of the other communities, because if they're departments are small, if they send 2 officers, for a lot of them, that's half of their force, right? So we go to them and we provide the training. And it's always amazing as we're talking to them about red flags and things to look for. We can literally see the light bulb going off in their heads like, I saw that, but I didn't know what it was.
Oh, wow.
And so we're like, okay, well, here's the number for you to make contact. Call us, tell us what's going on, and we'll see what we can do from there.
No, it's so important. It's just like, Daniel, with you guys. I'm sure when you're doing bail bonds and you there's probably a plethora of red flags that you know to look for.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so what are some of those?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff too that I know nothing about, and and you pass these messages along. I mean, like the fentanyl crisis. I mean, it's like I was talking to kids this weekend that are all teenagers, 13, 14, 15, 16, some playing around, some they experiment, they do, and I said, listen, just it's a different world out there, just
no kidding.
And so just it's as you learn some of this stuff, it's great to share it with people, because that's really the only way you get the message out there is honestly grassroots, and that's what we try to do.
Definitely.
What about the initiative? Like who had the wisdom to say, hey, there's not enough there's not enough money in this one area when it comes to human trafficking? Whose idea was it? Your idea?
It wasn't my idea.
No? Well,
it
you
was
could have told me yes, and I would have given you a big pat on the back.
It was actually the idea of a lady by the name of Amy Hutzel over at CJCC, and she runs their human trafficking, sex assault unit over there, and she was like, and she said she was having a conversation, and one of the things they were like is that there's not enough money really being put into this, and so the state of Georgia was invited to apply for a grant. The grant was applied for through her organization, CJCC, which is the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. But they wanted a team. They wanted to make sure that we were covering all bases, that not only were officers involved, but victim services were involved, and prosecutors were involved, and civil attorneys were involved for those who did not have legal status to help them with the deportation issues that they may have faced. And so we all gather as a group and we talk about challenges that we have, what we're seeing, areas that we may need to go and provide training. One of the things that we do is that, when I told you we were evidence-based, is that we use our resource to look at areas that we may see as hotspots for trafficking in the agricultural industry. And those are the areas that we go. So when we go to a community and we're providing training, we're intentional about providing the training in those areas, because we're wanting to make sure that the community is aware of what's going on, and so if they see something, they can say something and they can call.
Yeah, and this would help with obviously budgeting for those small municipalities too, right? And yeah, go ahead.
And so for those who don't have the training and don't have the resources, we go there and we let them know that we can provide the resources with our agents who can help with the investigations, as well as if the DA's office aren't familiar with how to handle a case, that's where I come in. I'll go down. I will help them with their prosecutions, because we don't want anyone to say that someone got away because someone didn't know what they were doing. We want to make sure that we are here and we can back you in every area that you need, from an investigative standpoint, from a prosecution standpoint, from a victim services standpoint. So we won't ever hear someone say that my trafficker got away because there was no one there to provide the resources that we needed.
And that, I guess that probably plays right into community outreach.
Yes, it does. It does. And so the community outreach, when we go and we provide the training to local law enforcement, not only are we providing the training and giving tangible and substantive training to the officers about how to investigate cases and red flags, but we also have victim services talking about when you have victims, if you may have non-English speaking victims, what do you do then? How do you handle it? Who do you call? And so we're providing them with resources that they will need. And if they get stuck, we are always a phone call away.
I tell you, it's so overwhelming when you think about some of the craziness that happens in the state of Georgia, around the country, around the world, and it does feel like a ray of hope for people. And I would imagine if there is a reason to continue to do the work you're doing, that's it.
That's it. And, even just merely getting someone out of a bad situation is success to me, right? If they decide they are not ready to talk, but we have gotten them out of a situation in which they're being forced to do labor, they're not being paid, they're being trafficked, and if we can get them out of those situations, that's success to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Anytime you can help someone, I mean, as a faithful man, I think that's what the good Lord calls us to do. Is to be Christ-like and to make sure that you're doing the right thing by people, and oftentimes, I think that's something that gets overlooked all the time because we live in this really fast society that works on 140 characters, and nobody talks on the phone anymore.
Right.
Everybody sends a text.
Yeah.
Nobody communicates in their own community, so people don't even talk to their neighbors. I know the two neighbors that live directly on either side of me, and we've gotten some new neighbors just across the street. So three. I bet our neighborhood has 2,500 homes, and I know 3 people.
Wow.
So, but I think that's really what's happening across the country, and so it would lead me to believe that because of the lack of communication, it makes your job and the GBI's job that much more difficult because nobody's talking.
Right. It does, and so sometimes I laugh sometimes with the agents because I'll say, okay, if you were an old school drug investigator back in the 80s, you have to put that hat back on because that's exactly what investigating these cases are like. I mean, you're really, it's not we use some current technology, but a lot of it is just time spent investigating, talking to people, surveillance, looking at stuff. And so, you really have to be dedicated to the cause.
And that's something that you guys deal with. I mean, we just talked about it in the episode when we focused on you and Second Chance Bail Bonds all together, is y'all have to do that occasionally, put on that investigator's hat.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, to figure out, because the people... Unfortunately, you would think once you meet the bail bondsman, you wouldn't be trying to commit another crime. But I can't tell you how many times people are trying to get out of jail with a stolen credit card, stolen identities, or they're not going back to a safe place, like we were just talking about. Literally, you have a cosigner on it, say it's domestic violence or things of that nature, where they're trying to get the person back out so they can do it all over again. So we're like, okay, we're going to deal. We'd be more comfortable dealing with your parents or a relative, not the significant other where we've seen a history of violence or it gets crazy. But
I can only imagine. Like I've always heard, and this I say it in jest, but it makes sense after what you just said. I've always heard, if you're going to break the law, don't break the law while you're breaking the law.
Right.
I mean, it's like somebody had told me the other day, like somebody had gotten pulled over and there was a warrant out for the arrest or whatever. And the reason that they got pulled over is because they didn't have the right sticker on their tag. Like they failed to buy the tag. They renew the tag. Yeah. Like, don't break the law while you're breaking the law.
Right.
It seems so simple. Don't ever break the law. I mean, that's the foundational thing. But if you are, at least be smart about it.
Yes.
It just seems like that is not the case.
Unfortunately, that is not the case.
Yeah, it is. It's a crazy way to live, it does seem. And, What groups participate in the coalition with y'all?
So we have Georgia Department of Agriculture, we have Georgia Legal Services, we have the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, GBI, Tapestry, and then we also work with HSI. We work with HSI, Department of State, just kind of depending on what needs are and what investigations require. We just bring on partners as we need to help, fulfill our goals.
And that doesn't even count like the local municipalities that you partner with on a daily basis.
No.
Yeah. So going back through some of is those, I guess, how do you get those agencies involved? Like, what is the route?
From a local level, we are not inviting all the local law enforcement agencies, primarily because it's just too many, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have our agents who are embedded within various areas of Georgia, who know the local communities, and they're there as resources to them.
Go ahead, finish it.
So if an agency or a local law enforcement agency needs something or has want some information, they know that they can reach whatever the regional office is in that area and speak to the person who's on the team. So we have a HEAT unit, our Human Exploitation and Trafficking unit. They have agents throughout South Georgia, and so they have relationships with local law enforcement. So if they need something, they can reach out to them.
It's impressive. I mean, I have a hard time just doing my basic things, getting to work, getting home, getting dinner on the table, getting the kids looked after, and y'all got that and balancing all this. It's impressive what you do. When we come back, final segment with Diane McCleod. She's a special prosecutor with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and is involved with the Human Trafficking Special Task Force here in Georgia. A couple questions will get answered next. Is the problem confined to South Georgia? Because she lives down in Savannah, drove all the way up here to the daggone ballpark to inform you about what's going on. And then how can the public help? How can you help listening here to Extra 106.3? We'll answer those questions next on Back Your Blue with Daniel Madelon. He is the CEO and founder of A Second Chance Bail Bonds. My name is Tug Coward on Extra 106.3.
Finding your direction, a career path, can be difficult. There's so many choices. Check out Life University and explore your options at their Eagle Madness Preview Day on Saturday, March 2nd. It's your opportunity to spend the day learning about their unique undergraduate programs like culinary nutrition, biology, business administration, and more. Come discover exciting majors and talk to current students and faculty at our beautiful Marietta campus. We'd love to see you at our Eagle Madness Preview Day on March 2nd. For more details and to register, visit life.edu/join today.
Job seekers, stop the endless job hunt. The Blue Collar Recruiter is your key to the career you deserve. Are you a skilled worker seeking the right opportunity? Look no further. We connect you with employers who appreciate your dedication and expertise. Technicians, electricians, plumbers, welders, and more. We've got it all, and opportunities are just waiting for you. So skip the frustration and let us guide you to your next job. Call the Blue Collar Recruiter, 678-916-6145, or visit thebluecollarrecruiter.com.
This is Back Your Blue, presented by A Second Chance Bail Bonds, live on Extra 106.3 FM and streaming for free anytime on the Extra 106.3 app.
Welcome back. Final segment of Back Your Blue with Daniel Madelon. He is the CEO and founder of A Second Chance Bail Bonds. My name is Tug Cowart from The Morning Extra, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 here on Extra 106.3. And our special guest, Diane McCleod. She is a special prosecutor for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. I think so many people have such great respect for the Bureau and the work that they do, and how they protect Georgians every day. I mean, it is a tall task to keep people safe and to make sure that we have a great place to live and a great state to live and great cities inside the state.
Oh, yes, definitely. The agency is absolutely wonderful. The people I work with are wonderful, and I really could not ask for a better group of people to work with and provide support to.
Diane, we hear about trafficking, and most people immediately think sex trafficking.
They do.
It is, and it's natural, too. It's on the news every night. A lot of people probably think it's not in their backyard, but that's a different story altogether. You've talked a lot about it, and you live in Savannah. You're native to Savannah, going to spend the rest of your life in Savannah, which I don't blame you. Savannah, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I love Savannah. If I could retire one day to Savannah, that'd be where I'd be. I know it gets hot. It gets toasty warm down there, but for me, that's right where I want to be. I love the heat. I love the humidity, and I love those. I love the Spanish moss. I love the river. I love everything about it. I don't think there's a more beautiful city than Savannah.
I cleaned my yard yesterday. If I knew you wanted some moss, I would have bought you a big
It's a big old, exactly, because they plenty of it down there. So you've talked a whole lot, and we focused on Savannah because that's where you live, and that's where a lot of your work is. So that would lead me to, is the labor trafficking specific to South Georgia?
So the labor trafficking is actually specific to the areas of Georgia that has large farms. So wherever you see a major farming community, that's where we start looking for our red flags. Mm-hmm. And so when we start looking at red flags, when we pull out our data to see who is filing applications to bring workers over, it'll tell us the counties where they're bringing workers, and it'll tell us the counties where they're bringing a lot of workers. And so we start looking at those communities, which Chatham is not one of them, but it's other South Georgia counties. And so it'll tell us those counties. And so we go to those counties. We meet with the sheriff's department, local PD. The sheriff's departments in those areas have been absolutely wonderful to provide training. And generally what we will do is we'll go to the county that's like lighting up and telling us that it has the most indicators for trafficking. And we'll go to that county, make contact with the sheriff, let him know why we want to come there and provide training. They will provide us a place to provide the training. And then the other thing that they do, and we ask, is for you to contact the surrounding counties. So while we're down there, not only would we like to talk to you, but we would like to talk to the neighboring counties as well. And so the response has been wonderful, because every time we go to a county and they're inviting 3 or 4 other counties to come, and then the local law enforcement, we've had an exceptional response.
I just think anytime that you can educate and you can inform, mm-hmm. that's a great combination. So I would imagine that law enforcement seeing the training that y'all do as advantageous for them to be able to be in contact. Like we talked about, people don't talk enough these days, to be in contact with each other, and then to develop that rapport with the other counties so they can work together on a myriad of things.
And that's absolutely right, because when we go and we share with them, and again, they would say, I saw it, I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know who to call when I saw it. And so now you know what it is when you see it, right? And 2, you know who to call when you see it.
How do people get involved? Can the public help do what y'all, or help assist y'all?
They can, because if they see any signs or indicators of human trafficking, or they have questions, there's a 1-800 number that they can make contact with. They can call the Bureau, because we can we will take our help desk will definitely take the information and push it down to the agents in the area so they can look into it. And so if they see it, they can report it. One of the big things I always tell communities is that if you're in an area, 9 times out of 10, especially if you're in a metro area, there is always some sort of trafficking event going on this time of year. January was National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So there were a lot of events that went on in January, and that's probably going to continue through March. So if you see something like that being offered in your community, just go and become aware of what you're looking at.
What about faith organizations? Because I know they're dialed into these things.
Yes, actually, I did a training for a community of faith-based organizations a few months ago, because one of the things, and they are located in rural counties, and one of the things they saw was that they had a lot of migrant workers who would come to the church. And they were coming to the church, and she said initially she thought, well, they're non-English speaking, but they're coming, because, they're coming to our church and they're coming faithfully.
They recognize the faith.
But she realized the other reason they were coming is because the church had a food bank. And so you had to stay for the service, and after the service they gave away food. And so they were coming because they were getting the food. And she said, I couldn't figure out why, if they were working, why they would come here every week to get food. And it's because their trafficker is probably not paying them. He's probably not feeding them like he's telling the government he is on his H-2A application. So their way of eating and surviving is to go to these churches that have food giveaways and go to the services and wait until after service and get the food that's being offered.
Heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. But those churches, maybe they didn't know in the moment what they were seeing, but they saw red flags and they knew it.
And she said, and I spoke to one of the pastors, and she indicated, she said, we didn't know. She said, we couldn't figure it out. And she said, and then someone was like, you probably should call Miss McCleod. Maybe she can, talk to you about it. And so I went down there and I did a training for them. And, and she was like, well, now we know. And so we gave out cards and we gave out information for them to give the congregants when they come and worship with them in English and in Spanish so that they'll know who they can call. In
that moment, you're doing the Lord's work. Mm-hmm. Absolutely are. Daniel, I know that is something that you partner with at a Second Chance Bail Bonds all the time, those faith-based organizations, because they're so eager to help. I mean, that's what the good book tells us to do, so that they're so eager to do those things. And Ms. McCleod just talked about the example, and I know that y'all have partnered with so many faith-based organizations because of that desire to do good.
Yeah, it's definitely essential to kind of what we're doing and fits in our wheelhouse for sure.
And then even starting a foundation based on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be a big thing that will be helpful for so many people. Is there anything that I've left out that we need to discuss that we should in the last few minutes?
I think we covered pretty much most of it.
Well, I'm glad that y'all are available and doing the right thing, because there's so many opportunities to do the right thing, and oftentimes people don't take it. So it's important to do it. How do people get a hold of you in the community? Like if they see something, red flags, what are the websites and phone numbers people can reach out?
So they can go to gbi.gov. They can make contact with me, diane.mccleod@gbi.ga.gov, and send me an email. There is a national organization called Polaris, and it's Polaris. It's the human trafficking website. They can go to Polaris and they can make a report there as well. And although Polaris is national, they do push the information down to the appropriate states and let them know.
Ms. McCleod, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you taking the time to come shed light on such a serious subject.
Sure.
And I know you talk about it all the time, but for me and Daniel and everybody listening, it's a lot of this is brand new.
Yes.
And I'm sure you run into that a lot.
I do. And so it's always very good for me to be able to get out, share the information, because until people are aware, we're not even going to put a dent in the issue.
You are listening to Back Your Blue on Extra 106.3 with Diane McCleod. She's Special Prosecutor, Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Daniel Madelon, CEO, founder of A Second Chance Bail Bonds. My name is Tug Cowart, and this is Extra 106.3. Is this the year you want to grow your business? Do you want to expand your team? Build a new office? Hey, it's Tug, and I want to tell you about First Liberty Building and Loan. Aren't you exhausted by going to lenders, building a relationship, and a week later, you're dealing with a new person? You won't have to with First Liberty Building and Loan. The Frost family has been helping businesses grow since the 90s, and they can help you too. They know the patterns, they know the ebbs and flows, and they know business. Now the Frost family wants to know you. FirstLibertyGA.com. Buying a building, buying a franchise, or expanding. Reach out and spend 10 minutes with them. See if you're a fit for them and if they're a fit for you. FirstLibertyGA.com. By the way, if you're a young banker and you want to work with a team that's faith-friendly with a culture of excellence, First Liberty might be a good match. Reach out to First Liberty Building and Loan at FirstLibertyGA.com. That's FirstLibertyGA.com.
Finding your direction, a career path, can be difficult. There's so many choices. Check out Life University and explore your options at their Eagle Madness Preview Day on Saturday, March 2nd. It's your opportunity to spend the day learning about their unique undergraduate programs like culinary nutrition, biology, business administration, and more. Come discover exciting majors and talk to current students and faculty at our beautiful Marietta campus. We'd love to see you at our Eagle Madness Preview Day on March 2nd. For more details and to register, visit life.edu/join today.
Calling all aspiring tradespeople. Ready to master a new skill to boost your career? Introducing the Blue Collar Virtual Trade School. Learn from industry experts from the comfort of your own home. Whether it's HVAC, plumbing, or electrical work, we've got you covered. Gain hands-on expertise through immersive virtual simulations and connect with instructors who have been in the field. Elevate your career potential. The Blue Collar Virtual Trade School, where future begins with a click. Visit thebluecollarvirtualtradeschool.com or call 678-916-6145.